This thing is going to be buried in the roof of his mouth, isn't it?
Oh yeah. He tried to eat it. She gone.
Welcome back to another video. In this one, we're hopping in the boat with Jeff Gustafson. We're gonna be chasing smallmouth bass. And in this video, he's gonna share a bunch of good info that'll help you catch smallmouth right now, this time of year. We caught a bunch of fish. We caught some big ones. We also had some double ups, of course. But without further ado, let's jump right into some good info. First things first, Jeff is gonna talk a little bit about how to find smallmouth this time of year.
You know, when it comes to finding fish, where do I go fish? Obviously the maps can give you some direction. We just pulled off of a little stick out on this point right here. And those are, you know, usually always gonna have some hard bottom around. For smallmouths, when you're looking, you know, relatively shallow, anytime you can find sand mixed with some boulders, that's number one. Always gonna be lots of crayfish around that stuff. And that's sort of my favorite, whether I'm on the Great Lakes, I'm at home, all over the place. And you know, you can find a lot of that with the map, and then get up there on those stick outs, use your shades, or you can use your side imaging like this. And you know, I don't know how good you'll be able to see this, but you know, right here, two big boulders. Anytime you see a shadow like that coming off them, those are big boulders. They're at least, you know, 3 or 4 feet off the bottom, throwing a shadow like that. On this side, you got, you know, there's a little bit of something interesting right there. So you pull up to a spot and you can see when it's all sand and flat, and then now as we're getting up on this, closer to the structure, we're starting to see a lot of rock, a lot of stuff, and that's where these smallmouths are gonna be. I love, you know, anytime you see those big boulders like the size of a car or anything, those are magnets, and we call it they like to play the guard the rock game. And often, you know, when I'm pre-fishing for a tournament, I've had this happen a bunch of times out at Lake Ontario. You know, we fish there quite often, the St. Lawrence River. You can find some of those fish the day or two before the tournament. If you don't catch them, you can actually go back and they'll still be there usually a day or two later. That's their house. But big boulders, they love. And then, you know, as we get later in the year and you start fishing a little bit deeper on some of the more offshore stuff, it's the same principles. You know, you really utilize the electronics a lot and find the sweet spots, find where those biggest clumps of boulders are, clusters. And sometimes, you know, it's sand spots, just something that's different, and that's usually where the fish are gonna kind of set up. But the other one thing, you know, this is the #1 general rule that I tell people if they haven't smallmouth fished a lot. When you get these nice sunny days and it's warm, there's gonna be smallmouths up shallow. If it's dark, cloudy, a little bit cooler, windy, then you're gonna wanna try and sort of go off the edge, fish a little bit deeper. So that's a misconception a lot of people have, when it's hot, you know, oh, the fish are gonna all go deep. Not smallmouths, they love it. I think the crayfish get a little more active up and crawling around on the rocks, and that's when you wanna, you know, use your eyes, get up a little bit shallower than you think that maybe they live, because you'll find them. And the other thing, any of these lakes that have good smallmouth fishing, these water bodies that are good, they let you know pretty quick if they're around. And especially, you know, we use all the electronics, but they bite or they follow usually pretty quick. And you could fish a spot and there could be 100 fish there, and the next day the wind changes, something changes, and if they're not there, you got to keep moving until you find them. So that's the other, you know, good thing to know, is just keep moving until you find biters, and like I say, they let you know when you get around them.
All right, now that you have a good feel for how to look for smallmouth, where to find them, that's always step #1 in the equation. Jeff is gonna talk a little bit about presentation, and in particular, one presentation that just seems to work for smallmouth bass pretty much anywhere you go.
Football netting, that right there is one of the most lethal smallmouth baits that you can put in the water. You know, across the smallmouth belt, obviously crayfish are a big part of their forage, so any of the Ned rig style baits work really good. So this is one of the Elite Series Northland football heads, 1/0 Gamakatsu hook in there, so perfect size, you know, not too big. You want it to match up with these small baits nice, but it's still a strong little hook. You can catch 4 and 5 pounders on it, and you know, not have to be chasing them around for 5 minutes trying to land them. You can reel them in on that and hook them good. The football head design, I love it because it kind of helps the bait stand up, look natural, look like a crayfish, and it sort of crawls around in the rocks a little bit better. It'll still get snagged, but not as much as a you know, a tube head or a traditional head that's maybe more likely to fall over. It helps keep that hook point up. So we're gonna catch some smallies on it.
Now this classic jig in a plastic presentation is absolutely deadly wherever smallmouth bass swim, but one of the biggest questions that people have, they walk into the store, they go on a website, and they're looking at different baits to pick up. One of the biggest things that kind of holds people up because they're unsure of it is what size they should get. So Jeff is going to talk a little bit about some of his preferred sizes and how that can change based on how deep he's fishing.
You can see it's a little bit of a heavier jig. That's a 1/4 ounce. We're fishing like 4 to 8 feet of water, so you know, you might consider that a little bit heavy, but with this bait, I'm not really trying to get bites on the fall. I want it to get down on the bottom and, you know, be a bug, be a crawfish, and that's what these smallmouths are looking for. And the reason, you know, the traditional Ned style mushroom heads, they're great too, they work good too, but when you're around a lot of these rocks and snaggy stuff, I've really started to like the football design. I think it just crawls and walks over the rocks a little bit better, keeps that hook point up. It'll still snag a little bit, but not as much. And then these jigs have obviously a 1/0 Gamakatsu hook in it, not a super light wire. It's heavy enough where we can catch these big 4 and 5 pounders that we're looking for, and just a really good effective bait. And the heavier jig also allows you to cover a little bit more water too. You know, I'm not sitting there waiting for it to get to the bottom for very long. If you see fish on your forward sonar, you know, you can drop it on them, it gets down to them real quick. So that's some of the advantages to using the football jigs. You know, if you're, you know, we offer a variety of sizes. If you're, you know, under 6 feet, I'm gonna go with the 3/16. If you're a little bit deeper, you know, to 12, 6 to 12, I want to go with a 1/4. And then if you're getting in that 15 plus, when, you know, especially later in the summer, more fish are going to be out deep, tie the 3/8 on.
All right, hopefully that should help you when you're trying to decide what size jig to pick up. But now we're going to get back to the smallmouth bass catching action.
That's a big one.
That's a proper one.
But this one, I think we could tow this one home on that gummy hook. God, I can't hardly move it. I was gonna boat flip him and try to break your spinning rod, Jeff, but I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah. I'd try and grab them for you, but I want to catch my own.
Fair.
But you know, when the Ned rig thing first came out, you know, and it's been 6 or 8 years now, I thought it was sort of the dumbest thing ever. Just a little stubby piece of plastic on a jig head. Turns out it's one of the best smallmouth catchers in that we have everywhere we go. Yeah. And not only smallmouths, walleyes, really great walleye bait too. But for these big smallmouths, I mean, man, I'm fishing all over the place, and they're really hard to beat. Great lakes, up Lake of the Woods, Rainy Lake. We're on a Minnesota lake right now. They just really work everywhere. Need to be part of everybody's arsenal.
Now, I don't think it's going to surprise anybody when I say Jeff had a lot of input on how these baits were designed. So in this next segment, Jeff's going to reel in another fish, of course, and he's going to talk about some of those characteristics that make it a good jig for how he fishes.
The other nice, you know, one of the nice things, these jig heads are high quality. You know, I'm fishing tournaments, fishing for a living. I want the best stuff. So the hook in here, we keep talking about it, but primo, you know, high quality hook. It's not going to open up. It stays sharp. You can, you know, rub it on some rocks. And then also, like, really good keeper on there for the baits. We got a little wire keeper, and the heads are painted nicely, sort of all the colors that you want, but they're, you know, they're not going to chip on you. He kind of folded that up on me, but nice paint jobs. Just like I say, well crafted.
Now beyond the jig and the plastic, another important part of the recipe is the rod reel line, and Jeff is gonna talk about that right now.
All right, gearing up to fish the Ned style baits, you know, standard spinning tackle. I'm using a 7.3 NRX Plus, so medium action rod, 10-pound Power Pro and a 10-pound fluorocarbon leader. So I'm a big fan of the braid on all my spinning gear. You know, it's just bulletproof and ultra sensitive. I mean, I can feel when I'm, you know, rolling over rocks, feel all the bites, get a good hook set on a long cast, and then the fluorocarbon just gives you the invisible link to the fish. It's a little bit more durable around the rocks and everything too, but yeah, standard size spinning reel. You want to definitely throw these on spinning gear, just be a little bit more efficient. You know, some people might ask, well, 10-pound line is pretty heavy for, you know, kind of finesse fishing, but we're on water with zebra mussels, so it just holds up a little bit better. You know, if you're fishing somewhere bites really tough, you might want to drop down to 6 or 8 pound, but for the most part, I like to use 10 just because a little bit more durable. And I mean, if you're on some of this big water stuff where there's big fish, you definitely don't want to be breaking them off. So the 10 pounds just gonna, you know, hold up a little bit better.
All right, well, that's about all we got for you in this video. Special thanks to Jeff for sharing a bunch of really good information. And if you enjoyed this video and you learned something, make sure to hit that little red subscribe button down below. So we have a lot more awesome content coming in the future. And until then, we will see you in the next one.